I'm going to hand over now to Catherine Blaiklock, who is a founder of the Brexit Party. And Catherine's going to give her views on the current situation and also how it may relate to the Brexit Party going forward if certain eventualities come to pass. Catherine, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, hello, I'm Catherine Blaiklock. I'm actually, Nigel Farage now is the leader of the Brexit Party, and one of the ironies of this whole thing is that none of us should need to be here to exist. UKIP shouldn't need to exist, the Brexit Party shouldn't need to exist. These fringe parties just should not need to be there. The reason we are there is not just, I believe, democracy in the Conservative Party, but democracy as a whole. Many constituencies you have no choice. I mean, it's particularly bad, for example, for people in Walthamstow, where they have the deputy speaker. They have no representation at all. But in many constituencies, and I stood in Great Yarmouth against Brandon Lewis, it was one of the highest leave places in the country. It was 72% leave. You had a choice between a very virulent socialist Remainer, you had a Green, you had a Liberal Democrat, and you had Brandon Lewis. And in one hustings we were at, it was actually said, why don't all of you groups, meaning the Liberal Democrat, the Green Party and Labour, get together, because all your views are identical. So there were 6 or 7 candidates, and I was the only candidate standing for Brexit. And it's no different anymore. And this is a fundamental problem. I mean, we have this issue as well with you know, we have a first past the post. First past the post is fine, as long as it's for parliamentary seats. Why don't we rerun Kensington and Chelsea about 6 times until they make the right result? We have this problem that 75% of constituencies in the Conservative Party were out on a first past the post system, and 62% of Labour places were out, and yet we have this 75% Remain Parliament. We know that we have this Remain civil service, and this is going through all sorts of areas that you don't always see. Let's take the petition. This was used in the European Parliament by Juncker, saying that there were 6 million signatures and that they should be represented. Well, we know that there were people from Western Sahara. We know that Nigel Farage's name appeared 700 times. We know that, we know that people had signed up as Juncker and everybody else. So it just is how many people you would like to pay to fake emails. We know that. But also, very interestingly, somebody I know put in a petition which said that treason was being committed. First of all, it took 2 weeks to get any response, which was beyond the period that they should have responded. And then they said that this was a joke. And so you had a civil servant writing that this petition was a joke, and it was thrown out. There are so many things behind the scenes. And who would have suggested a few years ago, when we had Brexit, that we would have exposed this problem with democracy, with political freedom, with political thought? I mean, Raheem mentioned Peter Walker. Peter Walker, well, let's put it this way. A file has been kept on me since I was a private individual. And I wonder how many files there are on you. Maybe just your membership of the Bow Group is enough that there's a file on you. Because there was certainly a file on me, and nobody'd ever heard of me. And what everybody fails to mention, I mean, the first expose that Peter Walker did on me was that I'd written a blog, a very innocent blog, about single mothers in Jamaica. Well, my husband is Jamaican. They failed at any point to mention that my husband is Jamaican, and I'd written about testosterone, which is a well-known fact that black men have higher levels of testosterone. But this became a big article in The Guardian. Now, you can just go to PubMed and find out about free testosterone in black men. It's not a secret, but presumably in the environment that we live in right now, that is a political thought crime. And how many people are committing thought crimes every day? We have something in the region of 8 to 10 people that the police are arresting. If you tweet somebody, and I happen to tweet somebody who I didn't know who they were, you, by association of having tweeted somebody else who might have said something else, are now associated, and you are tarred with that. I mean, we are at ridiculous proportions. So somebody can write an email directly to me saying that I'm X, Y, and Z with a pile of expletives, and that this, that, and the other should happen to me, and that's fine. But for me to say something, and by the way, I've got 2 brown children as well, and they're from my first husband, who's Nepalese. So I did, yes, and also in addition to that, I raised 100,000 for the Nepal earthquake, okay? And when a Guardian journalist went on to Nick Ferrari, nobody mentioned any of those inconvenient little facts. Okay, but I'll just give you an example which I've thought about. So if I said Sherpas, and by the way, Sherpas are an ethnic group, they're not a job, but they tend to be mountain climbers, and they hold all the records for mountain climbing. So if you want the fastest up, etc., it'll be a Sherpa. So if I said Sherpas are the best mountain climbers in the world, that is fine, I'm sure. But if I said Sherpas have a serious alcohol problem, which they do, because they don't smoke and they don't take drugs and they live at very high altitude, I'm sure that would be a racist comment. Now, those observations are observations that are correct. My biggest issue with what Brexit has done is about freedom of speech, about democracy, and about this effectively police state that we're starting to live in, and that terrifies me. And I think I'll end on that point, but I think, you know, this is what it's exposed. It's exposed something much greater than we ever knew existed. Thank you.
Mr. Walker is well known to several members of the panel, but I find the whole Guardian thing particularly bizarre, given that I personally witnessed the Guardian consulting Raheem in the United States on several occasions last week. So apparently,
last week they took me to lunch.
Right. So apparently, it's fine for them to consult Raheem and listen to his views.
Can I just say one other point about the Guardian? If you talk to the northern reporters and the younger reporters who come from the north, and I know what goes on in Great Yarmouth, and we're going to hear a little bit more about the social conditions in certain places that call Brexit. Some of them understand those conditions. It's this London liberal bit that's so different from the original terms of what the Guardian was, which is a northern newspaper.